The Earth's deserts are a challenge to the existence of life, but many animals and plants have adapted to the extremes of temperature and the lack of water. In southern Africa, the great desert is the Kalahari, and there can be found fascinating examples of creatures struggling to survive against the odds. I'm George Page, and I hope you'll join me for our exploration of the Kalahari next time on Nature.
Right here tonight at 7, WDCN 8.
It's the toughest race in the world. 1,000 miles across the Yukon Trail, through the hardest country in North America. One man, alone, against the odds. Next time on Adventure.
Monday night at 7 on WDCN 8.
American Playhouse presents Gene Shepard's The Star-Crossed Romance of Josephine Cosnowski. Once again, Shepard takes us into the lives of his favorite family in Holman, Indiana. Mom, the card shark. Dad, forever searching for the perfect used car. Randy, who has become a turkey. And Ralph, who has fallen in love with all things Polish.
Join us Monday night at 8, WDCN 8.
I think that perhaps many of the concerns are the same in terms of spatial relationships, etc. It's just that the limitations are different. So in jewelry, you have some rather exact standards in terms of weight, size, certain dimensions, whereas in sculpture, you don't have the same limitations. You have different ones.
Gary Griffen's metal sculpture is a natural outgrowth of his training as a jeweler. In forms as tall as 6 feet, the sleek surface of the metal contrasts with a variety of other textures.
The thing that I'm really interested in is perception. And I'm interested in presenting something to someone that in some way will challenge, alter, refine their perceptions of things. Perhaps make them see something in a way that they hadn't thought about it before. It's information, I guess. The bottom line is it's information, it's knowledge.
Factory, machine, and die tools do the cutting and shaping, allowing Gary to concentrate on making conceptual statements.
At this point, I'm very interested in extremes or polarities, because I think that when you examine them closely, you find that there are more similarities than there are dissimilarities. And usually it's one specific thing that makes them dissimilar, whether that's political extremes or religious extremes or something as obvious as construction and destruction. If you look at buildings that are being constructed or in the process of construction, that's comparable to buildings that are in the process of being destructed. So in my work, there are a number of things going on. One is that I think generally the quality of the workmanship is always really pristine, and yet in the midst of this are elements that are totally chaotic, ones that are there's no recognizable order.
The size of a sculptural piece adds to its impact, Gary says, but larger isn't more important. Making the jump from small-scale jewelry to full-size sculpture was a challenge for him.
When you're making jewelry, you're working at original scale, and suddenly when people begin to make sculpture, they start making models, and what they're really doing is making jewelry or babies, and then when you blow these things up, what before was a minute detail becomes a major form. And I don't think you can simply blow things up. So at this point in time, I work only in original scale. If the piece is 2 feet, that's what it is. It's not a model for a 10-foot sculpture. If it's 8 feet, that's what it is. It's not a model for a piece of jewelry. And I feel very strongly about that. I think it's important to work in what I would call original scale.
Whether it's jewelry or a sculptural statement that Gary's making, his metalwork is always finely crafted, a result of years of professional dedication.
What do we do at Channel 8? What do we do for you? We educate and fascinate, we orchestrate and fulminate, elaborate and cultivate. Yeah, Channel 8 communicates, we illustrate for you. We demonstrate, we postulate, interpolate and cogitate. We speculate and arbitrate. Yeah, Channel 8 articulate, cause we relate to you. Cause everything we do at Channel 8, we do for you.
Hello, I'm Hank Williams, Jr., and this is WDCN Channel 8, our public television station in Nashville.
Success in such different ways than you might see it elsewhere. For some students, it's incremental, it's very small, but nonetheless, I mean, there is progress in different areas. But Friday, we were out on the playground with a little girl who could eye gaze, and by that I mean look at representations of yes and no. It was a happy face and a frowning face. And by staring at a picture could indicate that she wanted to either swing or be pushed in the swing or go down the slide or not go down the slide. She didn't care for it, so she looked at the no or the frowning face when we asked if she wanted to do it again. That was something that for us was just major for this child. She's been here a few years, and we were delighted to see after this amount of time that we are beginning to see a yes-no response with her.
I think I teach love, and I teach self-respect, and I teach self-awareness and limitations and still respect, and I do it a lot through humor.
Many people think that the severely handicapped are somehow inhuman, and they are not, I'm sure.
Harris-Hillman is a happy place, full of dedicated teachers and special children. Some students here will go on to other non-specialized schools. For the rest of the student body, Harris-Hillman is as much like Metro's other elementary, middle, and high schools as possible. On this learning circle, we will be examining programs for the handicapped in the Metro school system. We will spend some time here at Hillsborough High School's mainstreaming program and at the program for autistic children at Wharton Middle School. A little later on, we will visit Dotson Elementary's Animal Farm. But first, a look at Harris-Hillman.
We're one of 6 special education schools in the system, and we're serving a population of multiply handicapped students. All students are going to have a health, orthopedic, or physical impairment, plus one other handicapping condition. And now that is primarily mental retardation. We also run handicapping conditions such as visual impairments or blindness, hearing impairments, or even deafness are the other ones. Most of our physical impairments are related to cerebral palsy and seizure disorders, or orthopedic, or problems with the bones. We are unique in that we are serving kids as young as 3 and 4, all the way up through 21, and then students are turning 22 during their last year here. And no other school is serving that range in ages. Every child over here has what we call an IEP, or an individualized education program, written for him or her. And in that program, we are including those skills, those behaviors, those programming areas that we feel for the coming year are important for that child to master or to work on or to have addressed. Most every child here has something in the way related to motor development, gross motor, delivered through the classroom teacher, through the physical therapist, fine motor skills, again through the teacher or the occupational therapist, and in both in many cases. A lot of communication deficits are displayed by these children, and communication is going to take the form here, not just verbally as in speaking, but through manual signs or gestures, communication boards, communication equipment. Many modes, may be incorporated. Self-help skills are another deficit many of our children have, so that we're working on feeding dressing, hand washing, toothbrushing, face washing. And for some of these students, it's not going to be something that they will be able to do independently, but they're going to require either supervision or some degree of assistance, because physically these are skills that they cannot on their own manage.
When the architects designed this building, they spent a few days getting around in wheelchairs to discover this school's spatial needs. Class size is smaller here to accommodate the students' special needs.
Okay, like a first grade age non-handicapped person, my little girl, for instance, is in a room with almost 20 other students and one first grade teacher. Here, first grade age children, they are handicapped and their needs are much different, but they would be in a room with a teacher, an instructional aide, and maybe anywhere from 5 to 8 or 9 other students. So our classroom sizes are approximately 8 or 9 children to a room with 2 adults. So that's a big difference there. We are looking at exploratory or enrichment activities for either this spring and certainly for next year, where we provide extracurricular offerings for students like cooking or embroidery, arts and crafts, any expertise that our faculty and staff represents, and they would like to work with the students in an informal or loosely structured situation. We're going to look at providing that at the end of the week. And in your regular education schools, exploratory is very much a part of that school program, and we need to try and incorporate that here. Anything that you would experience in an elementary, middle, or high school, if it's something that we can modify or bring in or expose our students to, however we can offer it to the students, we're looking at ways to do that.
Why is that so important?
Because these students need exposure to any and everything, and there's no reason that they should be denied access to something just because they're handicapped.
Physical therapist Nancy Cragen works throughout the metro system, consulting teachers, working with students, and advising parents. At Harris-Hillman, the physical therapy room is part of most students' day.
The way the law is written is related services or physical therapy services to enhance the child's educational program. That's the most essential thing that we work with. So what we're doing is not necessarily medical physical therapy, although we use our medical backgrounds and terminology to help. But what we're not necessarily doing a medical program, basically. We're doing an educational program. With the children here at Harris-Hillman, most of these children are on a pretty extensive program that is a gross motor type program that we give input to. It's carried out with the classroom teacher. It's pretty much, we give advice, we do an evaluation of the child, we decide what the child really needs as far as developmentally, and then we give input to the teachers, show them how to do some activities that we'd like them to carry out in the classroom, and then they carry on the program in themselves in the classroom. This involves positioning activities. If you saw the equipment around the school, we do a lot of work with putting the children in different positioning devices or things that they need to be in during the day to give them an opportunity to be in different positions during the day, as well as an active program that they carry out.
In a society in which communication is usually verbal and essential, these children often must find other ways of expressing themselves. Karen Stevens works with developing alternate forms of communication for her students to use.
We want them to be as verbal as possible, and we try to develop that verbal ability. But we also use an augmentative form, such as a communication board,